So I want to tell you a little story and ask you some questions. Imagine that you own a house in the country with a few acres, a stream, some forest land, and a well. Someone sneaks onto your property and siphons your well water. Then they put it in bottles and sell it back to you for $1 a liter at the local convenience store. A hydro company dams your stream and sells all the electricity to your neighbor. You've got some cash in the drawer, but it's disappearing from time to time. The garage begins to smell bad. It choked you to go in there. Then one day there was a burglary, but the dog hadn't even barked. You woke up and all your TVs, radios, cell phones, and computers were taken. The safe in your basement with some precious metals, rocks, and gems had vanished. All the trees in the backyard were gone, and your kid's pet ferret was missing. The thieves had left lots of evidence. You called the police, but they wouldn't investigate. The dog had been fed treats by the thieves and licked their hand. Bad dog. Outrageous, isn't it? Would you tolerate this situation? No. But we tolerate it every day as we're robbed of our commonwealth. What do I mean by commonwealth? And what is legitimate private property and private wealth? John Stuart Mill and all the classical economists said, the essential principle of property being to assure to all persons what they produced by their labor and accumulated by their abstinence. This principle cannot apply to what is not the product of labor, the raw material of the earth. So we should have private enterprise with private wealth and public enterprise with public wealth, not private enterprise with public wealth. That is monopoly capitalism or corporatism, not free enterprise. For example, in Alaska, the people own the oil, and everyone gets a dividend check of about $2,000 per year from their share of the Alaska Permanent Fund. We did a study of the value of common assets in Vermont, and we should all be getting a check for $1,972 a year from our common assets. Common assets are those things that are created by nature or by society as a whole. No individual or company produced them, and therefore they have no right to claim private ownership of them. So I have some questions for you. For example, let's talk about natural assets. Oil companies pump oil from the ground and often pay little or no royalties or severance taxes and get huge tax breaks. Did the oil companies put the oil in the ground? No. Who owns it? We do. Bottlers take groundwater for free, bottle it, and sell it back to us. Did the bottlers put the water in the ground? No. Who owns it? We do. Mining companies get title to land for $5 an acre under the mining law of 1872, which is still in effect. Did the mining companies put the minerals in the ground? No. Who owns them? We do. Users of fossil fuels pour CO2 and other emissions into the atmosphere at no charge, degrading the environment, making us sick, and changing the climate. Do polluters own the atmosphere and have the right to pollute it for free? No. Who owns the air? We do. How about assets created by society? We've heard about banks. Banks create 97% of the money supply through interest-bearing loans, putting an invisible inflation tax on everything and financing only private goods. Governments have to borrow money and pay interest to provide public goods. Does the Constitution say that banks have the right to create the money supply? No. Who has that right? We do. The FCC has given away 98% of our public airwaves to media companies, but the Communication Act of 1934 says that the airwaves are public property. Then they charge candidates for airtime so that the person with the most money nearly always wins. Did the media companies create the electromagnetic spectrum that is used to transmit radio, TV, and cell phones? No. Who owns the spectrum? We do. How did they get away with this grand larceny? Remember the dog in our story. Those are the politicians. They get fed treats by the thieves in the form of campaign contributions and perks in the legalized bribery that is our campaign financing system. How about the police? Will they help? No. The police in our story represent the legal system and the Supreme Court. We called the police last year. We said, there's too much money in politics. What did the Supreme Court say in the Citizens United case? They said we need more money in politics, and bribery is free speech. The theft of the Commonwealth did not start yesterday. It's been going on since the Enclosure Acts in England several centuries ago, when the nobles and merchants took the common lands away from the peasants through enclosure. They began the long process of privatizing, commoditizing, and monopolizing the commons. This is a machine that won't be satisfied until the entire natural and social systems of the planet is turned into money and profit. So who needs to take back our common assets and our democracy? We do.